Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 5:30 p.m., Monday, July 27th, 2020. I'm calling this meeting of the Paris City Council to order. Tonight, the invocation will be by Gene Anderson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by the Mayor Pro Tem, Ms. Portugal. Everyone stand, please.
May we pray? Heavenly Father, we're indeed thankful for every blessing that you give us. We pray for your guidance and direction, Father. We pray for peace across our land, Father, that we might conduct our business and that we might all prosper in all that we do. We just pray for your leadership and guidance in this, and we pray for our council tonight as they conduct the city business, that you would give them understanding and wisdom. We just pray, Father, that you bless our nation and draw us closer to you. For we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is consent agenda. Any item on the consent agenda that anyone wishes to have pulled for additional discussion, let me know now. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's COVID, no. The Citizens Forum is now open. The persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. The Citizens Forum is open. Anyone wishing to address the council, please step forward. You'll have 2 minutes. We need your name and address.
My name is Ruth Ann Alsabrook. My address is 208 5th Street Southwest. About 3 years ago, I chaired a city committee that made recommendations what to do with a $110,000 gift to the city to improve recreational facilities at Lake Crook. About 3 years ago, I think we also passed a city bond to improve our parks. The city's done a great job improving the playgrounds at all our parks, but I'm a little concerned that Lake Crook has been forgotten about. It was supposed to be in the plan. I'm not seeing anything done to it, and I want to remind the council not to forget about Lake Crook. My other thing is, I'd like to ask, could we have some trees planted at Oak Park? Our big oaks just keep dying. I've come before the council before asking for some. And I noticed a bunch of new trees being planted at Wade Park last week, which is great, but couldn't we have some to replace the ones that are dying at Oak Park? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christine Gray, and I live at 2895 Walnut Street here in District 6 in Paris. I came here today first and foremost to say thank you so much to the council for listening to your citizens, for listening to us, for taking the time, and for working so hard each and every day and giving your best effort in everything that you do. So thank you for that so much. And for also giving us the opportunity to continue to voice our concerns and making it your passion that Paris continues to grow. I look forward to seeing Paris become a better place for all of us to live, work, and grow together. Which brings me to my next point. I stand here today in support of Pastor Gary Don Savage as the interim District 3 City Councilman. It's my hope that the council continues to vote for unity and diversity that will bring the change that our city so desperately needs. Pastor Savage is strong, and he has a vibrant energy that would greatly benefit our council and the citizens of our city. He's a determined and hardworking man who will give 110% effort in anything that he puts his hands in. I also came here today to request support from the council for a citizen-led police oversight committee. I believe that there's a broken relationship between the people of Paris and the police who work to protect and serve them. I believe an extra layer of accountability would help to mend this relationship. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hello, my name is LaTrell Lacey, and I live in District 3 in Paris. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you regarding the decision from the last city council to no longer employ the Brashears company for our contracting services. And I also would like to give support for Gary Savage to be my district representative. I do believe in amplifying the diversity of this city council, and I think he would be perfect for that position. I also would like to advocate for a committee of police oversight that is led by citizens and police alike. This would enhance the relationship between our police and our community greatly. In larger counties such as Austin and Dallas County, this has been implemented, and when it's done right, there is success. There is, places where it's not done right and people are not given clarity on both sides of the situation, whatever situation it may be. But when it's done right and everybody's involved and there's clear transparency for all, it can work. I think with a new chief of police coming in, this would be a perfect opportunity to implement something like that. And it would help amplify the idea of transparency and fairness for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Taisley Scroggin. I live in West Houston Street here in Paris. First, I would like to thank our mayor and our city council for the decision that you guys made on the last meeting in regards to the Bashir's contract. We do also want to thank you for listening to us and hearing us out and also taking that into consideration for your community. I know that sometimes we come across as aggressive and abrasive, but I hope that you guys can see that as more so passion from the citizens who are now moving past apathy and are wanting to work together with you guys to create a better Paris. We realize now that it's imperative to do so, and while in the past we may not have paid much attention, me speaking for myself, to our city council, I think now we're starting to realize why it is incredibly important and the work that you do is incredibly important. I would also like to vocalize my support for Gary Savage as the District 3 representative. I think that he would work perfectly in that position, and I believe that he would serve our community to the best of his ability. I would also like to also support the idea of a community-led police oversight committee. We do believe that this could help mend, or something of the like could help mend the mistrust between our police and our community. Some of the benefits include the fact that citizens are given a place to voice concerns outside of law enforcement. It can help hold police department accountable for officers' actions. It can improve the quality of the department's internal investigations of alleged misconduct. It can help improve community relations by fostering communication between community and the police. It can help to increase the public's understanding of law enforcement policies and procedures, and it can also improve department policies and procedures. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bill Sanders, 3275 Eagle Bend. I'm here this evening to ask for your consideration to be appointed to the board, the Board of Adjustments. I'm a graduate of Texas Tech University. I've been a citizen here in Paris for 53 years. I worked for Campbell Soup for 42 years. I graduated, or I retired as Safety, Health, and Security Director for a region of 4 plants. I'm a member of the Paris Optimist Club. I've been working with that program and over 700 kids for over 30 years. I've also been a member of or served on the Traffic Commission for 5 years. And I would just like for you to consider my name and your appointment for this position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, everyone. My name is Carlos Hernandez. I live at 3710 Lee Drive, Paris, Texas. And I'm here to give a little bit of information. As a graduate student this semester, we were tasked to get involved with our community and identify any needs or concerns that could benefit from awareness or advocacy. This was challenging, as you all understand. There are various and multiple dilemmas in communities and that they face and encounter. However, like many other cities across the United States, we're all dealing with prisoner reentry. Every year, over 600,000 individuals are returning from prison to their respective communities. This population is faced with a tremendous challenge and not only requires the support of their family unit to be successful, but also the support from their community. During my visit with the local parole office, I was made aware of a program that is intended to help this population with education and skill building through technology. Unfortunately, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice cannot accommodate the internet or Wi-Fi needed to allow our fellow returning citizens these services. It is in this accommodation I respectfully request the Paris City Council to consider funding towards accommodating communication services for our local parole office. Not only will this accommodation provide the necessary tools needed to succeed, but also show the support the community has for its returning citizens and their families. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Chevis High, resident 2600 block of Hubbard Street. As a member of this city, one thing I look for in a council member is someone who understands what the community needs, one who responds to their constituents' requests and concerns and addresses them promptly and accordingly. A council member should be someone who is heavily involved in the community, but also puts the needs of the city as a whole as the forefront of their work. This is exactly what Gary Savage has been and is currently doing, from leading his church in the way God intended to mentoring boys and girls, women and men of all ages. Gary has shown exemplary skills and the ability to lead in several different ways. He is, just like each of you are, what a council member should be in the eyes of the community. I stand in favor for voting Mr. Gary Savage as the next member of the Paris City Council. Choosing him will add even more knowledge, wisdom, and leadership to go along with what's already present on the council. The city wants a new leader. The city wants Gary Savage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joseph Nelms, 690 Southeast 31st. I just want to say amen to what Sheva said. I'm here to support Gary Savage for the appointment of that council. I'm not sure if you don't know me, I used to be the captain over the patrol division, Paris Police Department. I recently resigned that position, but during that position, I was started there as an officer many years ago. I've known Gary since I was 15 years old. He's, unfortunately, I hate to say it, he's a little bit older than me, probably could be my dad, but he certainly has been seen as such. That relationship that I built with Gary over the years has certainly been one that we use advantageously. Gary was part of the City Square. We also worked with a program where he played basketball and involved some officers to bridge the gap, so to speak, between the community and the police department. I think the city council position needs somebody that's already been out there on the streets helping us bridge that gap. He has done that. He's not a divisive person. He's one that has brought unity to several aspects of Paris already. And again, I support what Sheva said about him. He's that person. He is a well-qualified candidate for the position, and I'm here to support him.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Larry Walker, 100 Southeast 20th Street. I'm also here to present my name for the possible appointment to the Board of Adjustment tonight. I'm a lifelong resident here in Paris. I'm a design professional for my whole life here, basically. And I'm also a professional engineer, so I definitely have got the experience to help in some of these decisions, I believe. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Alice Hearn, and I live at 795 28th Street Northwest here in Paris. And this is a lovely city, and I'm here to support my pastor, Reverend Gary Savage. If he is a very good man, he works hard, he works in the community, and he would be great on the city council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Embry Glenn. I live at 1410 17th Northeast. My concern is my street. It's been tore up, pulled up, put back, tore up again, and it's still messed up. for about the last 6, 8 months. My concern is the kids down there playing on the streets, riding their bikes and everything, and people are still driving like bats out of heaven or wherever else they come from. And it's supposed to get repaired. It's supposed to have been repaired by now. So I've had work done on my truck, front end work, from the hose, speed bumps, or whatever y'all want to call them up and down there. So the lady, the engineer said things are supposed to get started around the 3rd of August. But in the meantime, we need to do something about all those holes in the streets. And if we could, if y'all could, talk to the next chief of police about people driving so fast up and down that street. I've already seen 2 kids get run over and drug under cars. And when the street does get repaired, it'll be just like Paris drag strip out there then. So if you want to do something about beautifying the city and spending a lot of money, you can start down on 17th Street and work your way back the other way if you want to.
Thank you.
I'm Ashley Hussettler. I live in District 7. I'd like to thank you for listening to our community as we advocate for positive changes in the city of Paris. I would also like to note my support for Gary Savage for District 3 Councilman. I'm also here to suggest an accountability board. I feel they can help improve relations in between our community members and our law enforcement. We could reduce public concern while increasing the community education and understanding of policies and procedures. They would be dedicated to reviewing and improving conduct and relations between the two. This would allow a platform for citizens to openly express concerns and provide suggestions and solutions that could benefit our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joshua Hall. I'm a graduate student at Texas A&M. We were told to find some things in our community after interviews that need to be corrected. And I did a lot of interviews, stop interviews in Paris and Lamar County. And the concerns I found with the citizens are a little different than what I've heard here. There seems to be a lot of concerns about addiction in this area. And what I found was that once I did those interviews and I went to looking for resources for the addictions, and we're not just talking substance abuse addictions, but we're also talking behavioral addictions like gambling and such. The resources were hard to find because they were so scattered if they were available at all. And what I would like to advocate for here is the city council to look into assisting or initiating some sort of program to help kind of centralize those resources for people who need them to be able to find them. Because if we have them, because we have a lot of those resources in our county, but if we can't use them, then they're not doing any good. And having the resources and not being able to use it just makes our streets unsafe.
Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Sims Norman. I live at 606 Church Street, and I'm here today to encourage the council to approve the resolution amending the bylaws of the PEDC to allow to have for 7 members. The council has 7 members. The P&Z has 7 members. It seems to be a logical number. We have many, many fine things going on in our community, but we also have some issues that need to be addressed. Our median family income in Lamar County is 20% below the state average. One of the things this community dearly needs are more jobs. 7 minds may do better than 5. I encourage you to approve agenda item number 20. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have handouts if y'all would take them.
Yeah, sure.
I have handouts if y'all would take them.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
My name is Billy Harris, and I live at 1815 Cleveland. A few months back, we had an incident where a man with Down syndrome was found wandering the loop, and thankfully the incident ended without problem. Everyone went home happy and healthy, but it brought to my attention an issue that in our community, our police are not trained very well to interact with individuals with intellectual or cognitive disabilities. And so my proposition is, that's the handout I gave you is a little example of a database that the Red River Valley Down Syndrome Society would put together that would list out the age, the name, the address, and contact information for these individuals, because a lot of these individuals can't give that information themselves. It would also list any kind of triggers they have. Like this man, he hates being touched on the back. And the officer could have meant well and tried to pat him on the back, and that could have led to an altercation. Luckily, that didn't happen. But if the officer had something that would show, hey, I don't need to do this, or this might happen, then an instance like that could be avoided. Thankfully, nothing like that has happened in our community, but it's just good to put something in place to keep that true. And this little example is just one of the members of the Down Syndrome Society whose mother gave me permission to give this to you. And it's got the age, the address, the name, the contact information, things that bother her, and then useful information like her left knee can pop out of place very easily, so she doesn't need to be touched. And she has back surgery, and she can become very defiant, but not as just when she gets distressed. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for having me. My name is Pamela Furch. I'm an owner of a 501c3 nonprofit basketball organization here in Paris. I am also a Paris ISD teacher, coach, and a mentor. I am an advocate of all things health and wellness, but especially in our youth. I believe our youth is our future. I am here today to endorse Gary Don Savage for our District 3 representative. I would like to endorse him because of 2 reasons. First, I have seen him firsthand support the children in our nonprofit for 3 consecutive years. Not only monetary donations, but mentorship for everyone, and especially to our young black males. He meets our youth of all ages in the middle of their chaos and accepts them for who they are. He knows they aren't going to always meet him in his church doors, so he gets out in the community and he finds them in order to bridge this gap. Secondly, I think it is an imperative decision that we keep a diverse city council. I know Gary Don Savage will serve well and lead with integrity. He is exactly what a councilman should be. He is a leader, a mentor, and our city council would be so lucky to have him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Reginald Moore. I'm born and raised in Otter City, and other than that, I've been in Paris for the last 40 years. So I'm from this area, and on the incident that happened out on 271, where the guy got out of the sheriff's truck and assaulted the teen, at first it seemed like we were getting a lot of information on that, but I hadn't seen anything on it lately, and I was just wondering how it was going. So I don't know, I may be in the wrong place or the right place, but it seemed like we ought to be seeing something somewhere. Last I saw in the paper was it not online or in the paper one, it was under investigation. And that one guy had been arrested for the handgun, but the guy that actually started the altercation and committed the first crime, to me, hadn't heard anything about him, don't know his name, don't know if he might be babysitting my relatives today. I don't know anything about him or what's happened, so I'd like to have some more information on that. And another thing is, I'd like to see something done about it. We can't have adult men going around assaulting teens. We can't have our kids walking home and then some adult man jump on them on the way home. And next thing, if you let them off, they'll be wanting to jump on our wives next. And then if they can't whoop our wives, they'll be wanting to jump on our babies. So I think something should be done. That's just a comment on my part. And if I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time, I just like to let you know that I was here and I am concerned about it.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Josh Bray, and I'm with the PEDC. I want to encourage you, as Mr. Norman did, to go to the 7-member board that you had voted on previously. Clearly, as he said, 7 clearly are better than 5. Think about the fact that we have a hotelier, a doctor, a pastor, an insurance agent, a businessman, and a banker, and hopefully a council representative as well. Clearly, there's many people on the council capable of serving that role. It was strictly a decision to try to keep the ongoing momentum that we had developed previous to my election to that committee, and that's why Ms. Portugal, I think, was selected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Seeing none, I will close the citizens forum, which now brings us to the consent agenda for real. This time. Anybody have anything on the consent agenda that he or she wishes to remove for additional discussion?
I don't want to pull anything. I just want to say that one set of minutes that we sent back for more information, that was done in a good fashion.
Okay, great.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's written.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Everyone? Okay. That passes. And this meeting is going to be interminably long if we don't cut something out of it. And Ms. Portugal suggested that perhaps this might not be the best time on such a long meeting to do the annual evaluation of the municipal judge and the city attorney. So I'm going to make a motion to move item 33 up for immediate discussion right now, with the intent perhaps we'll table it if the council so desires until the next meeting.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on tabling their evaluations until next meeting? Yes, we'll table A and B. Yeah, that's correct. Item 33 includes C, and we'll keep item 33 on there, okay?
I spoke with Ms. Harris, and she was very accommodating and willing for us to postpone it, and I wasn't able to reach the judge, but it would keep him from being here on a
You don't have to sit through a
night.
4-hour meeting. We still have to table it. Okay. So we have I make a motion to table.
Made a motion, I second
Okay,
it.
all in favor of tabling? Okay, thank you, Judge. We'll see you next meeting. Apologize for inconveniencing you.
Ms. Harris still has to stay.
Yeah, she has to stay anyway. Okay, the meeting just got a lot shorter. Next is item number 18, where we convene into executive session pursuant to section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorney to receive legal advice about 1, pending or contemplated litigation, and/or 2, on matters in which the duty of an attorney to his or her client under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with this chapter regarding Paris Regional Medical Center tax abatement. It is now 6:57, and we are going in 5:57. Oh, I can't even tell time. 5:57, and we're going into executive session right now. It is now 6:44. We're out of executive session, and I'll make a motion to authorize a lawsuit against Essent PRMC involving the tax abatement agreement.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay. Next item is item number 20. Discuss and possibly approve a resolution amending the bylaws of the Paris Economic Development Corporation, increasing the board of directors from 5 to 7 members with 1 seat to be filled by the sitting council member nominated by the Paris Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors and approved by the city council. Let me explain this one. When we took that vote, we were unaware that state law prohibited the PEDC from appointing a member to itself, and it must be appointed by the council. So that entire motion, which brought it to 7, and also put a city council member on there with that stipulation, was not valid. Therefore, we're bringing it back in order to make sure we're legal. And there was some concern on this, and the next item hopefully will address some of those concerns, because item number 21, which was my idea, we'll talk about it when the time comes, but was to have a statement that it is the intention of the city council, as expressed in this policy, to approve the nomination of the PEDC's board of directors of a council member to fill the seats referenced in section 4.02 unless there are substantial mitigating factors which in council's judgment indicate that the PEDC's board nomination is not in the best interest of the PEDC or the city of Paris. That's about as strongly worded as I could do it to try to get what the council was wanting to do, to accomplish, which was to give the PEDC their choice of which one that they were going to put on the board. But this is in 2 parts, and I'll open it up for any discussion. It will take 5 votes to pass this, okay? So, because it is, if it doesn't pass, if this doesn't pass, the PEDC board presumably will go back to 5, and that'll be a nightmare to have to mess with, but we'll do it if we have to.
So we've already voted technically on going from 5 to 7.
Yeah, but that motion was not valid because it contradicted state law.
So do we need to talk about 21 first, then?
You know, it would seem to me that's not unreasonable to pass 21 first, but 21 assumes 20, does it not?
It does, but you could certainly move that up if you want,
Yeah,
discuss it.
I'll make a motion to move.
Because it may have an effect of how you want to.
Okay, I make a motion to move 21 up to discussion right now.
Second.
All in favor of moving 21 up for right now, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Well, so we're moving it up. We're just, so on 21.
If 20 determines 21, so why would you put 21 in front of 21? 20 is what I'm saying. Because if 20 doesn't pass, 21 is obsolete.
Then it'll be moot anyway, I guess. If
Yeah,
20
so-
doesn't pass, it'll be moot. Well, that's, okay, well, okay, let's,
Can we combine them? We can talk about it.
can we combine the two and talk them out and together?
I don't see why you can't. I mean, you need to vote on the things
Okay,
separately.
so
but
how
you can
about-
speak about them, talk about them at the
I
same time.
make a motion that we combine these two together and talk about them as one.
The motion was combined, so, right? When we made the motion
Well,
was,
technically I moved 21 ahead of 20, so let's try to clear it up with a motion to combine these two for group discussion.
Discussion purposes.
We have a second on that?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of combining these two for discussion? All opposed? Okay. All right, I think everybody knows what I'm opening up for council. Ms. Stone?
Well, you know, I've always been opposed of a council member being on EDC, and I'm still opposing it. So since we're combining these two, my answer is no. I do not. I feel like it's a conflict of interest. That's just how I feel, and I'll have to say no to from the 5 to 7 because these two have been combined now. So I'm gonna stick with the no for that one answer because I do not feel that city council need to be on EDC because to me it's a conflict of interest because we've had conflicts already with city council and EDC, and it's just too many people too many people involved, you know, with the city being on the council. So my answer is no, since you're combining both of them.
Okay, Mr. Hughes.
I mean, I'll wait to hear, you know.
Okay. Ms. Portugal.
As it stands with 5 members, a quorum is 3. So 3 people can make a decision, a financial decision with taxpayers' dollars and spend hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. I think that is too few people. A quorum would be 5 with 7 people. Our most important boards have 7 members. Our council has 7. And we hope we can have much better communication between the EDC board and the council with a member serving on that board. I've been the council liaison to the PEDC board for 3 years. I think during this time of my son's illness, I might have missed 1 or 2 meetings. That's about all I've missed. And I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, Ms. Knox.
Of course, I'm going to support the increasing of the membership from 5 to 7. And it was my idea to allow the PEDC to select the council member that they wanted to serve with as perhaps a compromise to their not wanting a council member to serve. And so we combined them together like that. Apparently that part of my motion was the illegal part. So, but I think that Ms. Harris did a nice job of capturing the intent along with the policy that you've recommended, so I would support that.
Mr. Pilgrim.
I think we've already voted on this. I think it's crazy that we're having to revote. It sounds like there's a case of sour grapes. I don't know if there is, from somebody involved with the EDC and is pushing this agenda. This was voted on by the city council. We voted it in. Now we're going back. This is the second time we've gone back. We did it with the board appointments because somebody had sour grapes on board appointments. Somebody's got sour grapes with this deal. It's absolutely sad that we're going to even talk about revoting going from 5 to 7. It's been voted on. It's in, and if the the idea is we can't have a city council member because of some kind of conflict of interest. We are the interest. There's no conflict. There's an interest for the city council. We appoint those board members. We vote. If they spend more than $400,000, we're tied with them to the hip. We're friends with them. We're hand in hand. That board appointment, I wanted to be that person. I didn't get that. And I'm not going to have sour grapes about it. But we need representation from the council. The EDC wants representation from the council. I've spoke with several of their board members, including Mr. Bray, who spoke tonight. And then we go from, okay, we're gonna vote it out because people are. It's just sour grapes. That's what this thing has come about to. It's sad that that's where we're at in the city, but I'm going to vote to extend from 5 to 7 because we need 7 people on that board. Just like Mr. Bray said, we need multiple minds. We have a very diverse PEDC currently. I want to keep it that way. If we go back down to 5, who are we going to take off? We're going to have to reappoint again. We're going to have to re-vote again. We're going to have to go back through the deal again because somebody's upset because their person didn't get put on. That's what we're up against. That's how childish this thing's gotten.
Well, and I'll say, I think what we did, I agreed with it, and I think that Mr. Bray and coming up, and the PEDC was on board with this. Part of this was my idea too. I wanted to more closely work with the PEDC, and I've been, we've been working real well with them lately. But I just thought it would be a good idea. A lot of places council member is on. And I'd hate to have to back down to 5 again, and I'd hate to have to, which means we'd have to I guess, kick off somebody that we put on, and which would not be something I would want to do.
How many votes do we have to kick somebody off? I think we've talked about this before.
Well, a removal is 5 votes.
But are they even on? I mean,
Well-
if the motion didn't pass and it was not a legal motion, therefore, I guess their appointments wouldn't be legal. This
Well,
is just a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. I mean, there are the two possibilities. If you have to appoint people again because your appointments were for a 7-member board and you now have a 5-member board, or if you actually remove someone, or you may have a voluntary resignation. I mean, I don't have any feel for that, but that's a possibility as well. But that's something that would have to be done, but at the next
I
meeting.
still think the best thing for this council to do is to approve this resolution, to approve this, and this pretty much unknots everything and gets us back to where I thought we wanted to be. My intention with the resolution, though, was to simply point out that we would have no intention of appointing anyone other than who the PEDC nominated, unless it was extraordinary circumstances. And that accomplishes pretty much the same goal within the constraints that we have with state law.
On the vote, was there anybody else nominated other than Ms. Portugal? I was not at the meeting. I was out of town. Was anybody else nominated other than Ms. Portugal at the EDC meeting as the city council voting member?
The way that worked is that there was a motion by Mr. Finley and a second, and he called the question, and no other nominations were able to be put on the floor.
Mr. Hughes, you haven't spoken. I'll like to hear your thoughts.
Unfortunately, that Stephanie wasn't present at the meeting when this motion was made, but I thank her for her expertise in guiding us in the right direction by catching our mistake as our attorney. And we're here now because it's our job to do what's right and make sure everything is legal. So if anybody's upset that we're doing the right thing, they must have a personal agenda, because we have to do things right, whether you like it or not. That's our job.
There's nothing illegal with us putting a member on there.
Please don't cut me off, sir. I'm talking.
There's not anything
Sir, please
illegal.
don't. I didn't interrupt you.
Let's
Don't interrupt
please.
me. So, as I was saying, Stephanie caught a mistake that we made. As our attorney, that's her job. We're here now because we're doing the right thing. Who knows who's gonna vote? I don't understand the problem. I don't know how anybody's gonna vote, but the two that said yes and she said no. So, if we're doing the right thing, sound like to me, if you're upset at that, then you have a personal agenda. So we're here tonight to do the right thing for the city and our citizens. So I'm here to listen to any motion anybody's gonna make.
I think since Mr. Hughes made the motion originally to go to 7 members, we should allow him to make the motion.
I'm sorry,
Again.
ma'am, I'm not making any motions.
All right.
May I make a statement?
Go ahead.
If this motion fails and we go back to 5 members, it's a travesty to the taxpayers. On June 22nd, 2020, Mr. Hughes made the motion to go from 5 PEDC board members to 7. At the July 21st, 2020 meeting of the PEDC, Mr. Hughes was nominated by Mr. Hashmi and seconded by Ms. Bills. Those were the only votes he received. Now he doesn't
That's
like what
incorrect.
happened.
Only one motion was passed on that, and that was
Do
yours.
I have the floor, please?
Well, if you're gonna lie, we're
Thank you.
correcting lies and mistakes now. Stephanie, can we correct that on them? No, only one motion was made correctly?
Only one motion was made, but
Thank
Okay,
Dr. Clifford has control of the meeting.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll finish your statement, and then I'll let you respond.
Mr. Hughes is not running for reelection in November and only has 98 more days to be a city council member, only 6 more council meetings to attend, and only 3 more PEDC meetings at which he would be eligible to attend as the council representative to the PEDC board. Now you have to ask yourself, why would he have been nominated? In 3 months, we'd be here doing this all over again. From all of 2019 through the June 22nd, 2020 meeting, Mr. Hughes missed 16 of the 42 meetings, or 38.1% of the city council meetings. Nearly 40%. During that time, there was no explanation to staff or council where he was and why he wasn't here. This council has a lot of pressing business to help move the city of Paris forward. We have racial tensions to address. We have streets to fix. We have a new manager to support. We have a budget to adopt. What is best for this city is the taxpayers to have better representation on all of our boards and commissions, but especially the PEDC and this council. We need to stop worrying about the semantics of nominate, select, choose, pick, vote on, consider, appoint, assign, propose, name, elect, recommend, draft, specify, submit, intend. Use all the synonyms you want. But can we please just get back to the work our constituents elected us to do and moving Paris forward? Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, you have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, Ms. Portugal, I was never nominated, so for the records, I mean, if you're gonna state facts, please state actual facts, not your facts. State the actual facts. You are correct about missing the meetings, but I did call and tell why I was missing the meetings. But you know, I'm a man of my word, so that's why I knew my business came first. So that's why I'm not running for re-election, because I knew I couldn't make the commitments that I'd agreed to. So as a man, I decided not to run, to let someone else step in and represent the city, because I couldn't. But we're here now because of a mistake that was made. Now, I don't like to personally point fingers, but it's all these side meetings that you're involved in that's created this stuff anyway. If we would meet like we supposed to in front of the public and stop the behind the door meetings, we wouldn't have this problem. All the phone calls you made, all the threatening people's jobs you've done, you need to be put in check yourself, really, because you know you've done these things.
Okay, I think we're getting off topic, and
But the thing about it is, we're here to serve the city. So Stephanie, once again, caught a mistake. We're fixing it. If it doesn't go your way, that's fine, because I've been outvoted on here many a times. But I still come and do my job. So whichever way this vote goes, you don't even know how I'm gonna vote. But whichever way I vote, I stand behind it 100%, and that's the way we'll move with the city, working together to make Paris better. Thank you.
all right. Any more discussion on this? I still think it's in the best interest of the PEDC to make this change, because I think it does effectuate what the intent of the motion was, and I did my best working with the city attorney to get the language in there that would make it fairly imperative for the council to approve and still within the law. So I think it's in the best interest of the PEDC, and I think it's in the best interest of the relationship between the council and the PEDC to pass this. And I certainly hope that it passes, because I think it'll be very good, and I think it'll be unfortunate if it doesn't pass. Then we're going to have some problems that we'll have to deal with. But regardless of that, I still think it's the best thing to do. I think it's in the best interest of the PEDC. Honestly, I think it's the best interest of the council. So I will make a motion that we make the amendment as described in the packet that accomplishes what we've been talking about, and also change the, what's the other thing? Insert, what's the document that we're inserting the other?
You had the policy.
Okay, and also so since we're combining this, I want to make this a single motion. And also to amend the policy, so to amend the bylaws, so the motion is to amend the bylaws of the PEDC for 7 members, with 1 member being nominated by the PEDC and approved by the council, and also amend the policy of the City Council of the City of Paris regarding the appointment of council members to state the paragraph, "It is the intention of the City Council as expressed in this policy to approve the nomination of the PEDC's Board of Directors of a council member to fill the seat referenced in section 4.02 unless there are substantial mitigating factors which in the council's judgment indicate the PEDC's board nomination is not in the best interest of the PEDC or the City of Paris." I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, we're back down to 5 on the PEDC then, because it takes 6 votes to do it. So we'll have to discuss this at a future meeting. Okay, item number moot, we will skip that. I'm sorry, 2022 is now moot, so we will skip that. Is that correct, Stephanie? We just skip it?
Yes, sir, it's
Okay.
moot.
Item number 23, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and act on an ordinance considering the petition of David L. and Sherry E. Whitaker for a change in zoning from a one-family dwelling district number 2, SF2, to a one-family dwelling district number 3, SF3, in the New Beginnings addition, CB-242, Block A, Lots 3 and 4, LCAD 126819 and 126820, located in the 400 block of 19th Northwest.
David Whitaker is requesting this zoning change from SF2 to SF3 in order to construct a 1,200 square foot single-family home on the lot. There's actually 2 lots proposed. The zoning ordinance provides minimum square footage requirements in all of our single-family dwelling districts, and the minimum required in SF2 is 1,500 square foot. And so in order to build the home that he is proposing at 1,200 square foot, he needs this zoning change to SF3. There's similar sized homes in the area. He actually built 2 of them just up the street a couple of years ago. Staff recommends approval. This is appropriate for the neighborhood and good for the city. And the Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to state for or against this, please come up and address the council. Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion. Any questions or discussion on it? All right, I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Make a motion to approve the zoning change from single-family dwelling district 2 to single-family dwelling district 3.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Item number 24, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and act on an ordinance considering the petition of Monty Moore for a change in zoning from a general retail district, GR, to a neighborhood services district, NS, in the City of Paris, Block 249, Lot PT 35-D, LCAD 108624, located in the 3000 block of Clarksville.
Mr. Moore is requesting this zoning change for his property in the 3000 block of Clarksville Street. It also backs up to Pride Circle in the Johnson Woods subdivision. And he's proposing to build a number of duplexes on the property that would be accessed through a cul-de-sac. The subject lot is heavily treed and could provide a nice multifamily or some residential development with appropriate access. And so the future land use actually calls for this area to be retail, but all of the adjacent properties are currently either PD or neighborhood services, with the exception of the single family to the north. So staff is not opposed to this change, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval. They did specifically discuss Pride Circle, and so I wanted to mention that here. While it's not something that we can enforce with zoning, Pride Circle was initially stubbed out to be, extended down to Clarksville Street, so it would have entry from Clarksville. The neighborhood was opposed to that, and so we'll work with them through the subdivision regulations, through the plating process, on how the cul-de-sac will be arranged, and Mr. Moore is willing to work with us on that. So staff is recommending approval, and the Planning and Zoning Commission also approved this.
All right, I'll open the public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to, Mr. Moore.
Thank you. I'm Monty Moore. I live at 530 Laurel Lane, right in the middle of Johnson Woods. Bought the property a few months back. It's zoned general retail, which would have allowed for duplexes up until the first of the year when everything changed. So we've come back and asked for the neighborhood service zoning so that it would be like the property next door, and we intend to build duplexes there.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Moore? Go ahead.
I have a question with regard to the zoning. If there's going to be duplexes built there, why isn't it zoned multifamily residential?
Well, because we also have, the lot next door was on neighborhood service, and it also allows for us to do something on Clarksville Street under the neighborhood service while being able to do duplexes also.
Oh, so you're gonna do another business or something?
Yeah, well, we're not sure just yet. So it just gives us what we need, what we wanted to do the design.
I got you.
Okay, anyone else want to speak at the public hearing?
I am Mary Lou Coe. I live at 1070 31st Southeast, and I'm not opposed to what Monty is planning on doing, but I am opposed to Pride Circle Street being opened up, because we have it's just a nice neighborhood there, and he's got all of the land on Clarksville frontage that would make him all the streets he would ever want. And we're just all old people living there on Pride Circle, and we just kind of would like to keep it like it is, but we're not opposed to what he's trying to do, other than not opening our street. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Open it up for discussion on the council. Any questions, comments, discussion? Any questions for Mr. Moore? All right. I'll make a motion that we, of a zoning change from general retail district to neighborhood services at the property described.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. And next is number 25, discuss, conduct a public hearing and act on an ordinance considering the petition of Home Vesting LLC for a change in zoning from a general retail district to a one-family dwelling district number 2, SF2, in the city of Paris, block 187, lot 2, LCAD 16984, located at 805 Clarksville. Lamar.
Thank you. Tamara Sexton purchased the subject property at the northeast corner of Lamar and 8th Street in April of this year, I believe, and she has leased it out as a rental property. Shortly after moving in, the tenants were made aware of commercial accounts for the water, sewer, and trash pickup. And that's really what initiated this zoning change, is because currently single family is not allowed in general retail. As you may recall, in 2018, we did the comprehensive plan update, which included a number of recommendations to move our zoning ordinance forward. And one of those was to specifically address some of the uses that are in general retail and commercial districts. And at the time, the city made the decision to remove all residential from those two districts. Ms. Knox, you asked about neighborhood service. We did not review neighborhood services whenever we did that review. It was specific to commercial and general retail. But that is why, with that ordinance change, all residential has been removed from those two zoning districts. So, this is a planning principle, and it's meant to separate more intensive uses from quiet neighborhoods, so that people live in their quiet neighborhood, and then you have the higher traffic streets where you got the hustle and bustle, you've got delivery trucks, and all of those things are intended to be separated through zoning. The property at Lamar and 8th has been used for retail and office space since at least 2012. And as such, this property has already made the transition towards what our long-term city plan calls for, which is a retail district along Lamar. Ooh, sorry. Got to take a breath. The adjacent properties are currently used for retail, office, grocery, and a fueling station. And these are appropriate along major thoroughfares where properties are highly visible and there's higher traffic numbers. So while staff sympathizes with the position that Ms. Sexton is in, and especially her tenant, we feel it's important to uphold the long-term plan of the city. And in this location, we recommend keeping the zoning in conformance with the city plan. And a single-family zoning district in this location would not benefit the overall community. It would really just benefit this one property owner. So staff recommendation was to deny the zoning change, but after hearing the petition from the applicant, the Planning and Zoning Commission did vote to approve this with a 5-1 vote. And so we're asking for you to consider both sides and see how you'd like for us to proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the public hearing on this first. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward.
If beautiful old homes in Paris had a patron saint, it would be Miss Sexton. My name's Jeff Starnes. I live on Sunset View here in, I guess it's Paris, it's my sister's house. But in any event, if you've driven down Church Street recently, you can see a number of the houses on Church Street that show Miss Sexton's handiwork. I think she's redone at least 4 houses or restored at least 4 homes on Church Street. We're here because the city told us that we had to be here to request a zoning change for 805 Lamar. Up until March of 2019, the property was zoned general retail, and single-family residence was an accepted use. And at that time, in March of 2019, the city apparently passed an ordinance which changed or amended the accepted use of general retail to do away with the single-family residence. That amendment was buried in the city's document vault. If you look in the city's document vault, at least as of May 25th of this year, you couldn't tell from the number of the amendment that it actually referred to changing the ordinance law for general retail or the accepted use. Unfortunately for Ms. Sexton, when she bought the property, she didn't know about that change in the amendment. The lawyer who sold her the property didn't know about the change in the amendment. The architect she talked to didn't know about the change in the amendment. The bank's appraiser missed the change in the amendment. The Lamar County Appraisal District listed the property as residential, and the city's own website, at least up until May 25th, listed the property as single-family residence as an accepted use of general retail. 805 Lamar Avenue was a home for over 84 years. If you look in those pictures, the first page shows the way the house looked before Miss Sexton bought it. The second page shows the way it is, at least on the outside, that it is today. Those other pages that we provided to you, the other pictures, that's just some more of her handiwork showing the type of work that she does. I think you'll be excited about the possibilities she brings to the table in restoring these grand old homes here in Paris. We know the city is saying, don't do this, don't do this. Luckily, P&Z said, yes, we recommend go ahead and doing that change. Why the city would be against restoring one of these beautiful old homes leading into downtown rather than having it fall into disrepair is beyond me. I'd point out that amazingly, under the current amendment or current accepted use for general retail, it could have been a boarding house. Miss Sexton's not that person. She's here to make it a home. She has a family living in it now. Miss Hearn, who may be, if you work in the hospital, know who Miss Hearn is. And it is a pretty healthy rent for that home. I'd point out that there are a number of other residences on Lamar Avenue within that block. The street immediately behind Miss Hearn's home there at 805 Lamar on Houston Street has that same zoning area for general retail, and it is full of single-family residence homes. The property to the west on 8th Street is full of single-family residence homes. Sue Hodges, a long-term resident, lives in the Rock Garage apartment directly to the west. Another home, one that Ms. Sexton redid, is the Gibbs Estate home across from Fry and Gibbs Funeral Home. Greg Howard, who has the Spanish Oaks Apartments, lives in that property. While the city is concerned about ingress and egress and having it block up traffic on Lamar. I'd point out that if it was a retail space, presumably it would cause more traffic problems than a residential site. The good thing about this property is the main entrance is on the west, on the 8th Street side, so you don't have to get into the property from Lamar Avenue. I want to point out that while the city said we learned about this issue because of a trash problem, it wasn't because Ms. Hearn was trashy or Ms. Sexton wasn't keeping up the property. It was because the city had refused to pick up the trash because it had a prior commercial use and was zoned general retail. Mayor Clifford pointed out in his address when he talked to the Planning and Zoning Committee, there are plenty of available retail spots here in Paris. We're not at a loss for general retail places. What we are at a loss for is some people like Tamara Sexton that'll come in and restore some of these grand old homes. And I can't think of a better advertisement for the city of Paris than coming into town on Church Street, going to Lamar Avenue, converging into downtown and having these big homes there. I ask that you carefully consider her request, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. I'm going to talk first on this because I did get kind of involved with this at planning and zoning. For the council's information, that area, the future land use plan is reasonable. It does show that entire area from Clarksville to Lamar, both sides of the street, and another block north on Houston Street, the south side of Houston Street. And I drove through there and looked, and there are lots of old homes there. And what this does, when that ordinance was passed, they were all grandfathered in. And whenever it changes hands, someone dies, someone sells it, whatever, this issue comes up. And all of a sudden, the house has no value because the only thing you can put in it is retail. And if no retail or business wants to go in there, the value of the house drops to next to zero, and the house will sit there and deteriorate and be torn down. This is probably not the best way to do it, and my next agenda item, number 26, I will be discussing what I think we should do. My personal opinion is that any structure that was originally built as a home, regardless of whether it's been used as a business, regardless of whether it's been sold to someone else, that if someone wishes to live in it again and fix it up, they should be allowed to without having to go through the zoning change. So the next item we'll be discussing how to avoid things like this and to refer it back to planning and zoning and get planning and zoning to tell us the best way to accomplish this goal. But in the meantime, we're left with one piece of property that, again, I checked the website, even when the Planning and Zoning Committee met, I checked the website that same day, and I found that perfectly acceptable to have residents in general retail. So even if you went on the city's website, up to the day of that meeting, and I don't know if it's even been taken down yet, the website was inaccurate. And so I think this would be extremely unfair to her. She's already spent some money on it. There's a nice lady and her family that's moved in. There is no ingress or egress from Lamar Avenue itself, as they mentioned, and the entry is in a parking lot kind of behind the building. So that's what this one's about. So this would be technically changing it back to a residential, but one-family dwelling district. But hopefully, if item number 26, if we can get something sent to planning and zoning, we can get a more reasonable change in that ordinance so that this won't become necessary. But again, all those houses that are on Houston Street, which is a block over, all the ones on the south side of Houston Street, they're all, as soon as they change hands, they're going to hit this, and all of a sudden, well, a business has to move in there or you have to tear it down, take your pick. And most of those houses, the ordinance will condemn a bunch of houses as soon as the owner passes away or it's sold. It will have like zero value. So I'm definitely going to support this zoning change, but I don't think this is the right way to do it. I think the right way to do it is to amend the ordinance. So, okay, I've had my say. Anybody else started this?
I drove by the house. I might have spoke to you probably about a month ago. The house, there are other houses around it, and is there a family still in that house? It was a family living there.
Ms. Hearn and her family live in the house.
Okay. Like, as long as the work is getting done, and this house was purchased under the pretense that it was residential, one-family dwelling. So, and you listed a lot of people that missed it, you know, that it was residential, and it was advertised as residential, even with the appraisal district, correct?
Step up in the microphone so it'll be on the recorder.
Okay, so you know, since she bought it, purchased it under the pretense that it was gonna be residential and everybody missed that, well, everybody's gonna have to pay the price for it, because I believe it needs to stay as residential.
Because the main issue was the trash pickup. I just witnessed this the other day, that a house was facing on one street, but they set their trash on the other street, that the trash company did not pick it up. So with this, for the safety of our workers, I do recommend picking the trash up on the A Street side and not Lamar, because the trash truck goes down A Street like that. So with Stephanie not Stephanie, with Grayson, I think that's something that need to be discussed in this, because just for the safety of our employees, that they pick up, they're allowed to put their trash out on the A Street side instead of Lamar. That way we don't have trash sitting out on Lamar like that. And like I say, the safety of the workers. I know I saw it the other day. The workers picked up the trash right beside it, but left that one because it wasn't where it was supposed to be, basically. So, I mean, I think that's something that needs to be arranged in that, so they can, for the safety of the workers, they are allowed to set the trash out on the A Street side.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or discussion on this?
Is this area in our historic district?
It's not.
Okay.
I checked at the meeting today.
Okay.
And it's not.
Because I know we do have strict codes that if you are doing a historic home, you need to consult HPC. And I think the trash issue was that this had been a business, and the city of Paris trash people don't pick up.
Yeah.
And so it went from Sanitation Solutions picking it up to needing the city of Paris to do that. But there are homes and businesses all up and down Lamar in that block that our trash people do pick up regularly.
Okay. Any other comments? No. Then I will make a motion that we change the zoning of this property from general retail to SF2, one-family dwelling district number 2.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And the next item, number 27, relates directly to that. Number 26, discuss the zoning ordinance as related to structures originally built as a residence but are now located within zoning districts that disallow residences, specifically creating an allowable use for said structure to be a residence, and request that the Planning and Zoning Commission study and make a recommendation to City Council. There's a couple of ways this could be done. I think my suggestion was, if it's ever been a house, it can still be a house, even if somebody's run a law office out of it for 5 years, if the structure was original. But what we don't want is, we don't want new residential construction there, because ultimately, even the Brookshire's lot was part of the main plan, and those houses were accumulated eventually, and they were torn down, and then it became retail when it came back. So I think that would be a compromise that would allow some of these houses to not have to be torn down or to be rehabilitated, as long as it makes sense to do that. Now, there may be other ways, like with a special use permit. So my suggestion is, this is typically done by Planning and Zoning. My suggestion is to refer this back to Planning and Zoning and let them come back with their best recommendation to accomplish this goal, and let them make a recommendation to us. So that's what this item's all about, so that we don't have to do this again, which is really the wrong way to do it. We should change it to general, we should keep it general retail, but have an exception for these houses. So I'll open that up for any discussion or comments.
Well, I had some concerns with regard to multifamily zoning, and whether it's multifamily zoning or whether it's multifamily, multi-level zoning. Because a lot of times we zone things multifamily, and when we look at the plat, we're just seeing the bird's eye view looking down. And a lot of times, these are multiple-story apartment complexes, and I think we might need to know that designation. And I just didn't know if that could be added to this, or is that a separate thing that we
They
need to
probably could.
kind of come up with a list of things that we want them to revisit for us?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead and state it for the record, and they could look into doing that as well.
Well, that, and also special use permits. I think if we issue a special use permit, that we need to give it a limit of either 3 or 5 years, and then revisit it again to make sure that they're still in compliance with what they said that they would do in order to get that special use permit.
I guess that's on a different subject
Right.
So,
It's all going
yeah.
back to planning and zoning, but
Yep.
those are the things that I wanted to
Okay.
have, ask that planning and zoning revisit as well and bring back to us. And I didn't know if we can attach it to this, or if we have to have a whole separate motion to request that they look at those. Do you know?
what do we have to do, Stephanie?
Well, your agenda item is regarding this one specific item.
Okay, so
mean-
I need to fill out the paperwork and have it come back on our agenda to
Sure,
ask them
that'd be
to do
great.
some other
Or,
considerations?
you can talk with us, between my office and community development. If there's some things you're interested in, we can start looking at those
That'd be
as
great.
well.
Okay, thank you.
If you want to do that a
Okay.
little less formally, but certainly at any time, you can put that on the agenda.
Okay, any other discussion on this? This is, yeah,
Houston Street, because all of those are residential.
that's
So
right.
Why,
And they're-
why
the
is it?
minute they sell, or someone dies and it passes to someone else, the city says, no more, you now have to put a business in here. And, there's not-
Actually, it could still be, it's once the use changes, then it can't go back to residential. If somebody lived in a house and then sold it and it was still a house, I mean, you don't have to turn
Okay,
it
so
into a
that,
business.
so the grandfathering, it doesn't,
Yeah, I
the
mean, it's-
grandfathering doesn't go away
Right,
if it's
it's a
simply
legal
sold.
non-conforming
So
use.
if somebody opens a law office up in it, and then it can never be a house again.
That's right.
Which
Like
is,
the house
which
right
is just,
behind it,
which is
was
just
his-
silly.
his
yeah.
office.
Yeah. So maybe this problem won't come up again anytime soon, but if it's ever been a business, then it can never go back to being a home again, even though it's a perfectly nice home. Well, this is just a recommendation. We don't have to have a motion on this, but is it the consensus of the council to send this to planning and zoning and see what they come back with?
Yes.
Everybody on this end consensus? Okay, so the consensus of the council is to ask planning and zoning to look into this for us. Okay, number 27, receive presentation from Garver about the wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation project. Discuss and act on contract amendment number 1 to the agreement for professional services with Garver USA to continue with phase 2 of the project, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Council, at June 10th, 2019 meeting, you unanimously approved a professional engineering services agreement with Garver USA for comprehensive rehabilitation of the City of Paris wastewater treatment plant. In that time, most of you have actually had the opportunity to come out and tour the facility to see for yourself what kind of condition that facility is in. You've heard it numerous times from me, from other city staff. So tonight, Jeff Sover with Garver USA is here to give us an update on the status of Phase 1 of that agreement. Also with Jeff is Lance Clement. At the end of that presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask any question you would like to, and also be asked to consider approving an amendment to this professional services agreement to keep this project on track and moving forward. So with that delay, I'm going to introduce Jeff Sover with Garver USA. Jeff?
All right, we have a presentation for y'all's review tonight. Let me pull that up. All right, howdy, Honorable Council. As Mr. Harris introduced me, my name is Jeff Sober I'm an environmental engineer and vice president with Garver. We're a consulting engineering firm that's been retained by you to evaluate your wastewater treatment plant. So this evening, we're going to walk through your proposed wastewater treatment plant improvements, and I'll talk about the history, the problem, the consequences, and the optimal solution moving forward. And I hope this presentation is visible on your screens in front of you. Is that correct? Thank you. So we'll start tonight with the history of your wastewater treatment plant. This plant site has been in operation for over 80 years. Now, it's got a very unique and interesting history. For those of y'all who have witnessed that facility, it was installed by the Works Progress Administration in 1936. They built the original portion of that facility. It was then expanded by German prisoners of war in 1944. It went through a substantial expansion in 1971. It had the last major capital rehabilitation that ever occurred in 1996. Now, in 2015, this facility started to receive violations from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality for noncompliance with the permit. And since then, your staff has worked very diligently to try to make upgrades where things are critically failing. Now, regulations for treated wastewater have changed over time, which has essentially reduced the effectiveness of your existing plant. So if looking at this graph, this represents 3 permit limits or wastewater characteristics that are regulated by the TCEQ through the National Pollutant Elimination Discharge System. And you can see that starting back in the 70s, that these regulations for the quality of the water, represented by BOD, total suspended solids, and ammonia, were quite high. And that over time, more stringent regulations have been passed, requiring that the quality of the water leaving the facility is cleaner and better for the environment. And with that, there's been no major change in the process of the facility. So what essentially has happened is that the capacity of the facility is getting smaller and smaller over time as you have to treat to a higher and higher effluent limit. Most of the plant's facilities require rehabilitation to keep up with these evolving standards. And there are additional regulations coming down the line from TCEQ for nutrient limits that we need to be looking at in the future for upgrading this facility. This is an aerial of the facility as you can see it today, where the primary treatment in this facility is happening by those 2 round large circles on the lower left-hand side of your screen, which represent the orbital oxidation ditches. This is the biological process which does most of the heavy lifting of cleaning up the wastewater here in the city of Paris. This is one of the major elements that needs to be replaced moving forward. The city hired our consulting firm to conduct a detailed site investigation of the existing facilities. So we employ a large group of disciplined engineers. These are engineers that focus on electrical engineering, instrumentation engineering, mechanical, civil, environmental and process engineering, instrumentation, and we mobilize them to the site. We followed the guidelines of the WERF, or Water Environment Research Foundation, condition assessment protocol, so that we use a standardized protocol to understand what the condition of that facility is. And you can see our team here in these photos working alongside your staff to evaluate every portion of the process at your facility. With that being said, we'll now next move to discuss the problems that exist at the City of Paris's wastewater treatment plant. So our condition assessment and regulatory review found significant issues with almost all the processes on site. In fact, 20 out of the 22 processes are at the end of their service life and require immediate repair or replacement. Now, the pie chart on the right-hand side of your screen represents that breakdown. That's essentially 45% of that facility needs to be replaced in kind. 41% of that facility, we can still utilize some of the major structures and components, but they will need major rehabilitation and upgrades to continue working into the years that come. And 14% of that facility is either obsolete and no longer in use or cannot be used any further. Now, your city staff and their operators should be commended for the level of compliance that has been achieved at this aging facility. Mr. Tim Bright is here with us this evening. He is the manager of that facility, and he has worked diligently with the rest of his staff to maintain what they can do from an operations and maintenance perspective to keep this facility compliant. You'll see here this was working on one of the clarifier drives that exists at the facility while it was out of service. However, this plant continues to receive consistent notices of violation due to its aged infrastructure. So this is a timeline where I said earlier in 2015, this facility received its first notice of noncompliance from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Since then, there has been several noted violations at the facility for the quality of water that's being produced and discharged to the creek. Since this time, the city has taken several measures to try to address these concerns, most of them which need significant capital dollars to upgrade the facility, which is what we're discussing tonight. So next, we'll review the consequences if nothing is done moving forward at this wastewater treatment plant. Consistent violations could lead to fines up to $50,000 per violation per day, an administrative order to construct all the improvements. Those graphics on the screen on the left-hand side represent the significant amount of correspondence that Mr. Doug Harris, your Utilities Director, has had with TCEQ addressing these violations over the last 5 years. And on the right-hand side is the reference to the potential charges that could happen if these violations continue. One of the largest challenges of not doing this on your timetable is that if TCEQ gets involved, they then begin to dictate exactly what must be done, where at this point you still have the opportunity to do it on your own goodwill and optimize the treatment facility. Multiple areas of this facility are unsafe for your city staff, your operations and maintenance staff. The photo on the left-hand side represents a structurally unsound floor in the screening facility area of the wastewater treatment plant. In fact, that yellow box is an area of the floor that gave way where a former retired employee fell through the floor in that facility while trying to operate and maintain it. The middle photo represents severe concrete deterioration in one of the orbital basins. This is an example of the concrete crack that you can see in the middle of that concrete beam that exists throughout the facility, where it's structurally unstable and unsound. And the photo on the right-hand side represents the pieces of equipment that your staff need to access and maintain to keep this facility in operation. And a lot of that access is just generally in an unsafe condition for them. Costs to operate and maintain the current facility will continue to increase if there are no improvements. If you got the opportunity to take a visit to your wastewater treatment plant, you would see the photo on the left-hand side, which is your rotors, which provide oxygen to the biological process. In the foreground of that photo, you can see that rotor is not turning. This technology is out of date. These parts are not available, and your staff must work very hard to source custom parts to continue to keep this facility in operation. The same is true through these other process areas that you see, some with obsolete technology as well, as shown in the right-hand picture. So finally, in our presentation tonight, we'll discuss the optimal solution, the one that we've been working alongside your staff over the last year to identify and propose to you. We completed a conceptual design of a regulatory compliant, safe, efficient, and cost-conscious facility. And on the screen in front of you is a 3D rendering from our design concept that we've been developing as part of the conceptual design that you authorized us to do. It represents what the facility would look like after the proposed improvements. We went through multiple alternative evaluations with your staff to right-size this facility, focus on the goals of regulatory compliance, safety, efficiency, while minimizing cost everywhere we could. I'll now attempt to walk you through this diagram of your existing facility. This is essentially the facility as it looks today. If you look in the middle portion where it says headworks, that's essentially where the first start of the treatment process happens. We're removing screenings and rags and grit. It then flows through the trickling filters onto the orbital aeration basins on the left-hand side of the screen where the biological process happens, then onto the final clarifiers. All of the solids are removed out of those clarifiers and sent to solids handling, so it can then be disposed of further. And the effluent water goes on to the chlorine contact basins where it's disinfected before being released into the creek. This construction would happen under one package. For demonstration tonight, I identified that it's in 2 phases, but it's one construction package. One of the unique challenges of this site is how we would construct the improvements on site. So it'd have to be phased during construction to make that happen. Our proposal, you would see, would include a new influent pipeline into a brand new influent pump station and headworks. This would be developed in the first phase of construction. Over on the top left-hand side, you'll see what we call out modern aeration basins. That footprint you see there would be the new biological process that would replace those big round orbital basins that you see in the photo. That is where the biological process would then happen in a much more efficient space and footprint. That's supported by a new blower building, new RAS and WAS pump stations, an additional 4th clarifier to meet the capacity constraints, and new solids handling facilities. Once that portion of the facility is up and running, the contractor would continue adding the additional pieces. They would have the opportunity then to demolish those big orbital basins and build new primary clarifiers, giving you the capacity you need. They would be able to build new sludge digesters to reduce the amount of sludge produced on site. They would rehab the rest of the components of the facility, like the final clarifiers, the existing sludge holding tanks, and the chlorine contact basin. And we'd improve their working conditions with a new admin and maintenance area for the staff. Improvements will increase the plant loading capacity and allow for future economic expansion with industrial users. This is important to the city because right now your facility does not have the capacity to take on any additional significant industrial users. And should that be a focus of the city council moving forward to try to attract new economic growth or industry, these improvements would allow you capacity within your facility to take on those industries. We have greatly reduced the project budget by utilizing existing reusable infrastructure. This is a significant capital investment for the city. The left-hand side of this bar chart represents the estimated construction cost in millions of dollars. The total replacement value to replace everything at that facility, if you had to build a brand new one today, would be around $108 million. That's a significant chunk of money. The proposed project itself is also very large. A lot of work is required there, and we've estimated that we can have a contractor perform that work for around $70 million to improve the facility. That difference has really been made up by your operations and maintenance staff working so hard to maintain what they can at this particular facility. We've explored multiple funding and grant opportunities. This is a table which represents the 5 primary financial assistance programs that we've started working through the process of identifying where funding can come from to make these improvements possible. You'll see that it's broken down into 3 primary funding programs: the Texas Water Development Board, which represents the top 3 rows of financial assistance; the Texas Department of Agriculture, which represents the CDBG, or 4th row; and finally the WIFIA program represented on the last row. The middle column represents what these funding mechanisms are. The majority of them are low to no interest loans. We are helping the city search for grant opportunities and loan forgiveness opportunities. There's very few available for water and wastewater treatment infrastructure, but we are in the queue to see if we can get some grant money applied to the potential loan. The final column in this table represents the various considerations of these funding programs, and it should be noted that the top line, which is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which is administered through the Texas Water Development Board, is the primary mechanism used for wastewater treatment plants across the state of Texas for funding these programs. And that is currently the primary method of funding that we're seeking. Now, the good news, if there's any to be had about this, is that the Texas Water Development Board interest rates are at an all-time low. This is a graph that represents the 30-year interest rate for their loan programs. On the vertical axis, you'll see the percentage, so that's the interest rate. And on the horizontal axis represents the years, or the last 8 years over time. You'll see that those interest rates usually range between 3% and 4%. And now, because of the current economic situation we're in and the COVID crisis, interest rates have dropped to 0%. So it is a positive time to achieve funding. Furthermore, there is several infrastructure investment bills being discussed at the federal level, which remove some of the restrictions associated with these programs that may also further reduce the costs in the coming year. Now, this project that we're talking about today, your wastewater treatment plant, has been approved for funding previously and is currently in queue for approval. So it should be noted that when these violations first started to occur in 2015, your utilities director reached out to us through a competitive professional qualifications process and asked for our assistance in recommending improvements for the wastewater treatment facility. At that time, we applied through the Texas Water Development Board for funding of this program with a $78 million budget that was proposed at that time. The Texas Water Development Board approved y'all for the funding and put y'all in the queue. The city at that time chose not to move forward with the project. We're now back in queue with the Texas Water Development Board with that new lower proposed project budget of just under $70 million. We will find out our spot in the Texas Water Development Board funding line by next month, and then we should have an understanding of the approval process by the end of the year. And then if the funding is available, it would be available to the city as early as March 2021, depending on how things may shift due to the current climate. We are currently working with your funding partners to project and minimize the increase in rates. Taking on debt like that will have some sort of impact to rates. We're looking at ways to work with your staff to minimize that. To understand that project funding and cash flow, this graph represents that this is actually a very long process. The project funding, or the paying out of that money, would occur over the next 5 years. There's a 18-month design process to actually do the design that we would do for you. Then there's a bidding process, and then a contractor would be chosen through that competitive bidding process to complete the construction of that over a 2 to 3 year time frame, which means that the facility, as we talk about it today, would be in service in about 5 years from now, and then you would begin paying back that loan over a 30-year process after that construction is complete into 2055. There's an engineering services proposal on your agenda. It's essentially an amendment to our contract that you approved last year. This would allow us to proceed into design of the next phase. It includes these following major tasks: continuing the funding assistance with the Texas Water Development Board to continue that process. It includes some survey of the existing plant site, some environmental work that's required by the Texas Water Development Board to proceed, and then the major elements are the preliminary design of the improvements, the final design of the improvements, and then the bidding and selection of the contractor who would actually construct those improvements on site. The fee that you would be paying us is part of the loan and would be contingent on Texas Water Development Board. So what's on the proposed agenda tonight would be contingent on if you receive that funding, and would be up to your city manager to determine whether we would proceed or not with that if it were to be approved. As I mentioned, this process will take almost 5 years to complete. So if you chose to move forward tonight and we started working on this process next month in August 2020, our design would be complete in March of 2022. You'd have a contractor on site by the summer or June of 2022, and you'd have that facility online about 3 years following. So these are very long processes to do this kind of significant capital investment. With that, I will close and take any questions that you may have.
Will the interest rate, I assume it'll be fixed when you get the loan, as there's no chance it will go up over time, correct?
Dr. Clifford, that's correct. They lock in the loan at that particular rate.
Okay, and also you didn't say anything about the pipeline from the flow equalization basin to the wastewater treatment plant and the shape that it's in. And has that been responsible for most of the violations from the excess water when it rains?
There's Yes, for the excess flow violations would be responsible primarily due to the I&I that's being experienced in that influent line. That's not responsible for some of the other process violations that are occurring at the facility. That line is in pretty poor shape, and that is included in that scope of work from both a design and construction cost standpoint to replace that line.
Okay, so that entire line will be replaced, or will it be rehabilitated?
It'll go through a value engineering stage where we'll identify what the lowest cost option is, whether it's rehabilitating the existing line through some type of cured-in-place option or just replacing it. And we'll run a full evaluation on that to find the best value for the city during the design process.
Okay. Any questions?
I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Bright that gave such an excellent tour to us. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight. I was so impressed with the detail of your proposal. You know, Garver will do this, the city will do this, and I think it's very well laid out whose responsibilities things are, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can you give us an idea if we get into an issue, or what's the rule if we get into a violation issue and then TCEQ comes in and you called it an administrative, what is the just a ballpark percentage above usual project cost if that happens?
Yeah, so the challenge there, Councilmember Pilgrim, is what he's referencing is if you don't do anything and the violations continue, the TCEQ can put you under an administrative order, which says you don't have to have a choice. You have to spend that money. The worst case scenario would be that $108 million, where they look at the facility, they conduct their own assessment, and they say you need to replace all of that. You need to replace everything. So that would be the worst case scenario if you were to go under an administrative order. That doesn't mean they do that. There might be a range in there, but I believe that's the bookend you're looking for.
Also, you'd have up to, could be a per violation up to, you said $50,000 per day?
That's correct. And they've warned us, warned the city in the paperwork that that's possible as well.
Mayor, we started talking about this right after I got on the council a couple years ago, and I'm a firm believer. I hate spending this kind of money. It's a lot of money. It's a necessary evil, and I think, like Portugal said, y'all's product is superior. I really appreciate the presentation, and I'm in firm believance that we've got to move forward to phase 2. I think there's going to be some hurdles, and I want to ask the city manager too what his thoughts are going forward. I mean, this is going to be a budget, thing we're going to have to look at as well, and.
Yes, obviously, the main thing, as your city manager, I do believe we need to move forward in this project. This is very much needed for our citizens, for our community. But then obviously we have to look at cash flow as we're talking about our budgets. How do we afford things? Because as Jeff mentioned, we are in the queue for the TWDB loan, the 0% interest, which if we can get that will save the ratepayers millions of dollars over the life of this loan. It is incredible. That 0% is incredible. So this is a great time to be doing that. And so obviously we're talking about next month, how do we pay our bills until we get that loan? Because as talking to Jeff and Lance, if we get the loan from TWDB, there's a process we have to go through to step 1, step 2, step 3 to finally get the money coming to us. We're looking at March of 2021 next year before we actually get access to the funding there. But so how do we bridge that gap between now and then, and how do we keep the momentum going forward? So in our budget, the draft that I'm working on currently, I have set aside some money to go towards helping bridge that gap. Also, working with Garver, we can also work with them to kind of delay a few payments here and there. Just a couple of them, so they have bills to pay as well. And so I really do believe that we can bridge that gap, keep the work going, and get this project started here. Now, so our recommendation tonight to staff would be for you to tentatively approve the amendment, authorize me to sign it once I determine the financial plan of action here, and I would keep you all informed as we move forward, because if the loan does not come through, we would then need to look at a certificate of obligation, a bond, and so we had to start the process, working with Gene, our finance director, working through our bond counsel to start that process. Now, we really want that loan. 0% is incredible, and so, but again, we got to move. We have to do the project, and so if we cannot get the loan, the bond's direction we need to go. So then I would start that process to get that going. That's probably about a 3-month process to get the money in hand, so we can pay our bills. So, there's a few cash flow things we're working through. And so again, I would recommend that you would approve it, tentatively approve it tonight, and authorize me to sign once we get the plan of action for financing organized. But at the same time, you always could you could also ask that we bring this back to you once we get that all taken care of, and not start the process as well. So all the options are available. We'll follow your direction on that. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Stone, you have anything?
So phase one consists of the funding and the design and the surveys and all the geotechnical part of it. So phase two, you said it's going to be 12 to 18 months. So when do you think that would be, starting phase two?
Yes, Councilmember Stone, allow me to back up real quick to this slide.
Okay.
Because I think I've probably used too many phase discussions. When I walked through the facility, I talked about construction phases, so don't confuse that portion. Let's talk about the design phases, which I believe is your question. So, Mrs. Stone, on the first design phase would be starting whenever you give notice to proceed to your city manager, Grayson, and that's an 18-month process of just the design work, which is the proposal in front of you from our firm, our consulting firm, to do the design work for the facility. Then we would bid that to a set of contractors. So that's essentially the phase one of the engineering services. The phase two of the engineering services, which is not on the proposed amendment tonight, would be for us to oversee and administer the construction contract with the contractor, who we have no relationship with, but to make sure that they're following our plans and specifications. So that would be usually called phase two in that process.
Go to the next slide.
Yes, sir.
Well, the one where, yeah, right here. Okay, the design fees, and Dr. Clifford, the mayor just asked that question. Now, you saying that will come out of the loan if we approve for that?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So until then, with what City Manager Mr. Grayson was talking about, how much is it gonna cost the city in between that time? I mean, do we know yet, or if that's gonna come out of our budget or whatever?
That's correct, Councilmember Hughes. So we would, as Grayson mentioned, and allow Grayson to answer the question if he'd like, we would work with your city to identify what we can do within the allotted budget you have right now. You do have some budget for engineering services, and we would do that or some of that or none of that until you capture the funding in March of 2021, which would allow you to access the entire loan amount.
Okay.
Yeah, we would not start the project until I signed. And so,
Yes.
I would want to feel comfortable that we have the financing in place. It's coming to get started here. So again, we can either wait until next March to start the project, or we can get started in the meantime, bridging some gaps with some funding that we're putting in the budget here, as well as working with Garver to maybe delay a couple invoices there. Is this so we can keep the momentum going, keep the project going forward. But otherwise, we would not start actually doing anything until I sign, which is not going to be until August or August or September at this point, if at the earliest. And so, just because I want to make sure I know the terms of that loan here, working with TWDB and how that works and the timelines of those pieces there. So, but we didn't want to delay this presentation tonight. We want to get in front of you here to get going on this project here. And so, so obviously, again, if you're more comfortable with waiting until then, we can definitely come back as well too. Otherwise, I'll keep you all informed as I move forward with this as well. So,
And I have one more question for Tim. As far as, like, we all went on a tour. As far as the concerned citizens, when they see the amount that we're about to spend, is it any way they could register with you and go on a tour to see exactly why we're about to spend or might be spending this type of money?
Absolutely, Mr. Hughes. We have an open door policy, and I would invite any citizen to come out and tour that facility.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
No swimming.
No swimming, no.
Wear your mask.
All right, any other questions? Ms. Portugal?
No, I'm good, thanks.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, and the city's recommendation is that we do option number 1. Is that correct? I think I see that on the next page.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, I'll entertain a motion on this.
I make a motion to recommend the option number 1 to approve Amendment 1 to the agreement for professional engineering services with Garver USA for Phase 2 of the comprehensive rehabilitation of the City of Paris wastewater treatment facility, authorizing the city manager to sign once a plan of action for long-term financing is established. Note, this recommendation means that the city manager is going to hold signing the amendment until a plan of action for long-term financing is established. The city manager will keep us informed.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, council.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, council.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. It was excellent. All right.
And also, in addition to Tim Bright, our superintendent, I'd like to introduce one of our Class A operators, and that's Brad Sulzer. Brad, would you stand, please? Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Okay, item number 29, discuss and possibly act on an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2017-003 relating to an amendment to Chapter 17, Article 3, smoking regulations, Section 17.46 definitions, and Section 17.53 prohibition of smoking.
I think we skipped one.
Can I skip one?
Yeah.
You're
Dadgummit.
supposed to be on 28, I think.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Discuss and act on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Paris, Texas, revising Article 3 to Chapter 34 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paris entitled Wastewater Discharge and Disposal, approving and authorizing revisions to Chapter 34, Article 3 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paris entitled Wastewater Discharge and Disposal, in conformance with current Environmental Protection Agency and Texas Commission on Environmental Quality rules, regulations, and policies implementing streamlining rule provisions.
All right, council, this is a much easier item than the last one. There is no budget impact here. The City of Paris is required by the Clean Water Act and also the EPA, Texas Water Code, and 40 CFR Part 403 to maintain and administer an industrial pretreatment program. Periodically, as regulatory agencies will do, they make changes within their rules, and this is simply an amendment to an existing ordinance, 2004-015, which is how the City of Paris operates that industrial pretreatment program. That out of 46 pages, there's only one word change and 2 sentences added, and making those changes brings us in compliance with EPA and TCEQ.
Any discussion on this little rubber stamp item?
It was a page turner.
I bet you read every 46 pages, didn't you?
I did.
No discussion? All right, I'll make a motion that we adopt as written the revised City of Paris Code of Ordinances, Article 3, Chapter 34, Wastewater Discharge and Disposal, Ordinance 2004-015. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Now, once again, I get to item number 29. Discuss and possibly act on an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2017-003 relating to an amendment to Chapter 17, Article 3, smoking regulations, Section 17.46 definitions, and Section 17.53 prohibition of smoking in enclosed space of employment. You want?
Yes, sir, thank you
Linda,
so
wanna-
much. I asked this to be placed on the agenda so that we could revisit I think we had started the process, and then with the COVID and everything that came up, we kind of put it on hold. But probably about 4 years ago, I believe that there was an amendment that was brought before City Council asking for clarification in the ordinance to maybe clean up some of the wording. Well, when that happened, it created a loophole that allowed certain industries to allow smoking at their in their plant. And I'm asking that we repeal the amendment and go back to the original ordinance so that workers don't have to work in a smoking environment. And that's what I'm asking the council to consider, repealing the amendment.
And that's what the attached ordinance to your agenda packet does. That's exactly what it does.
Okay. Any discussion on this? I'm in agreement with this. I think people that work in their workplaces should be free of breathing other people's smoke, and I don't think we should have changed the ordinance to begin with, and this kind of fixes it and changes it back. No more discussion. I'll entertain a motion here.
I'll make the motion to repeal the amendment.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Item number 30, discuss and act on an ordinance extending the mayor's declaration of local disaster for public health emergency and order dated March 19th, 2020, as extended by resolution number 2020-11 and by ordinance numbers 2020-14 and 2020-17 and 2020-23 for an additional 60 days. We're going 60 days this time instead of 30, so we want to do this every month. All this does, as I understand, it just keeps us eligible for some of the COVID funding, and another item is coming up is showing where we're going to spend some of that money, I hope.
Correct. And at this point, none of the CARES Act funding or any of the other things that we've been eligible for have required that disaster declaration, but it doesn't cost us anything to keep it into place. And who knows if at some point there is some sort of disaster aid out there that will require that. So, because we're tired of doing this every 30 days, and our numbers are going up, it's not going to be over in 60 days. We've asked you to do that for 60 days.
Okay, any discussion on this? This just extends our declaration of disaster, which keeps us eligible for some funds.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance extending the declaration of disaster for COVID-19 related public health emergency for 60 days or until September 26, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 31, discuss and act on a resolution appointing 2 members to the Board of Adjustment. Janice, you want to tell us our situation here?
We still need to fill this board. We have 2 full-time positions available. One of them is for a full term, and one is for an unexpired term. Since we met last, we have 2 people interested, and that's Larry Walker and William Sanders. I think you heard from both of them tonight. We're recommending that you appoint them. Brought ballots in case y'all wanted to do the point system where you decide who's going to be the,
So we got 2 slots and 2 vacancies.
Yes,
and
that's
2
right.
applicants. The only thing we have to decide who gets the 1-year term, who gets the 2-year term.
That's right.
How are we going to do this? They still here? I wouldn't be.
Or you can, make a motion.
I make a motion to assign William Sanders to the 2-year term.
2-year term, okay.
All in favor, or second? All in favor?
Okay,
and
that
the other
was easy,
one,
thank you.
We'll make a motion to put Mr.
Walker.
to the other term.
And second,
You got a
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor? Okay.
thank you.
All right. Item number 487. This, number 32, actually, discuss and act on a resolution reimbursing the Paris-Lamar County Health District for certain COVID-19 related expenses. Gene, you want to tell us what this is all about?
Sure. As you know, under the CARES Act, the city was allocated almost $1.4 million to spend for COVID-related expenses between March and December of this year. Under that act, we're allowed to cooperate with other governmental entities in the spending of that money. And so with that in mind, the Paris-Lamar County Health District has approached us about helping them with some financial assistance in two different areas. The first, in their contact tracing, they've spent already, at the time I prepared this memo, 768 hours in that, and they anticipate with the growing caseload that they'll probably spend 2,000 or slightly more hours between now and the end of December. And so they would like assistance in that. Their staff members are doing that tracing after they've done their regular job. They have to put in their 8 hours doing their normal job because those are all grant-funded jobs, and all those hours have to be spent on whatever the grant requires them to do. So all this is basically overtime that they're having to spend. This would include hiring a couple of temporary employees to help them with the increasing caseload. And then the second area, the Lamar County Commissioners, as I've noted in the memo, has agreed to purchase 900 COVID testing kits from Abbott, and Abbott is going to provide them the use of, on location here, a COVID testing machine that uses the latest molecular technology. It can provide a positive test result within 5 minutes, and a negative test result takes 13 minutes. And so the Health Department is requesting that the city also cover the cost of additional testing kits up to 830 or so to assist. They deal with the most needy people in the city, low income, people who don't have insurance, single mom with 3 kids who needs them all tested, and they can't afford $170 or $75, at a health clinic to do that. And so they kind of cover that gap for those who can't afford to have the test. And of course, I also mentioned there that the county's also spending $500,000 to what amounts to a mobile testing site that can be used for COVID testing as well if it's needed. So in summary, the Health District is requesting up to $100,000 of our CARES funding to reimburse them for personnel costs and contact tracing, which we estimate to be about $66,000 between what they've already spent and what they'll spend by the end of the year. And then for testing kits, they'll run about $34,000.
So we're authorizing $100,000 to spend on this, and with a pretty good chance we'll get the money back from the CARES.
Under the CARES, this qualifies. There's no doubt that it qualifies.
So we'll get the money back.
Yes.
So it's a real
Yeah.
reasonable way to spend
In fact,
the money.
we've already received the first down payment of the CARES money, and when we start reimbursing them, we'll be reimbursing them out of the CARES money to start with. I don't think the city's going to have to cash flow any of it.
Okay. I don't see any downsides to this. Any discussion on this? Okay.
And you said the county is putting in how much?
They're buying 900 test kits, which is $36,900, plus they're spending the $500,000 on that mobile testing site, portable in essence. So.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion here.
I'll make a motion to approve up to $100,000 to reimburse the health district out of our CARES funding.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you, Jean. Item number 33C here, convene into executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code 1 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassessment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employees as follows. C, to deliberate the appointment of a public officer to fill the vacancy in City Council District 3 until the next regular election in May 2022. It is now.
We tabled A and B.
We tabled A and B. A and B were tabled. It's now 8:18 and we're going into executive again.
Okay.
We're going to discuss this and we'll call for the candidates to go in and one by one when we finish the session. Okay. Ms. Hughes gets in here. It's 8:59, and we are now out of executive session. I will open the floor for nominations.
I make a motion that we accept Gary Savage as councilman for District 3.
Okay, a motion. Do we have a second on that?
A second.
Okay, all in favor of Gary Savage, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, it was unanimous. Okay, he's on, and congratulations, Mr. Savage. And let's see, do we have any other business? Because I don't.
Swearing
Okay,
in.
we have to administer the oath of office to newly appointed city council member for District 3.
I, Gary Savage,
I, Gary Savage,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties
execute the duties
of office of city council member,
of office of city council member,
District 3
District 3,
of the city of
the
Paris,
city of Paris,
state of Texas,
state of Texas,
and will to the best of my
and
ability
will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United
and
States
laws of the United
and
States
of this state,
and of this state
and the charter
and the charter
and ordinances of this city,
and ordinances of this city,
and I further solemnly swear
and I further solemnly swear
that I have not directly
that I have not directly
nor indirectly
nor indirectly
paid,
paid,
offered,
offered,
or promised to pay,
or promised to pay,
contributed,
contributed,
nor promised
nor
to
promised
contribute any money
to contribute any money
or valuable thing,
or valuable thing,
or promised any public
or
office
promised any public
or
office
employment
or employment
as a reward
as a reward
for the giving
for the giving
or withholding
or withholding
of votes
of votes
to secure my
to
appointment.
secure my appointment.
So help me God.
So help me God. I want to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Jordan's left, but we had two incredibly qualified, excellent candidates, and we couldn't go wrong with either one. So I just want, for the record, to say that. Okay, item number 873, consider and approve future events. No future events. Motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.